So, when you are going through a divorce, there are going to be a series of decisions that you need to make. You're going to have to decide whether to resolve things out of court or take things before a judge. You're going to have to decide on the process you use to get divorced. You're going to have to decide all sorts of things that'll have big impacts on the divorce itself and then on your future post-divorce. And it really comes down to two rounds of priorities. So let me explain a little bit more about the first round. One of the things that we do with our clients is we want to make sure they think of themselves in the future, in their post-divorce life, so that they can really prioritize what they want the outcomes of the divorce to be like. What do I mean by outcomes? I mean things that the big decisions that are decided in a divorce, like alimony, property division, parenting. Those are the divorce outcomes that I'm referring to. So if you think of your future self in the context of those outcomes, what do you want your life to be like? That's the first step of coming up with your priorities. And then when you talk through them with your attorney and you get a sense of the realities of what courts are likely to do in a circumstance like yours, it'll help you understand the decisions you're making rooted in reality. So you take your priorities in terms of outcomes and fold them in to the reality of the divorce process so that you can make the best achievable decisions for yourself and your family. So the next thing that you have to do, once you have those priorities around the outcome of your divorce, property division, alimony, child support, parenting, and they're rooted in reality because you've had a great conversation with experienced legal counsel, so you've figured out what it might look like, what is most important to you among those things. Then you have to make some other decisions around prioritization. And one of the things I've learned, and my colleagues at Marcroft have learned with working with thousands of divorce clients at this point, is that this second round of prioritization, it's really wonderful to start thinking about it earlier than most people do. Here's how it goes. You get those objectives about the outcome of your divorce and those priorities and a prioritization within those priorities. And then you have to think about the divorce process itself. How long do you want it to take? How much of an investment in legal fees are you willing to make in order to get those outcomes, those realistic outcomes that you're hoping for? So let's think of an example. Say, for whatever reason, a person is really committed to trying to finalize their divorce by the beginning of summer. Okay. Well, now we know that time is a priority for that person. And so one of the things you'll be thinking of is how would you weigh your urgency to conclude your divorce against your desire to achieve the objectives in terms of property, alimony, parenting that you're looking for in the divorce. And then one more step, how much of an investment are you willing to make in legal fees to either achieve the time goal that you have or achieve the priorities that you have? If it comes down to it, down the line, when you're deciding whether or not to resolve your case under the terms that your spouse is willing to accept and you're willing to accept, you have to think about how the priorities around your objectives to the divorce play against your desire to conclude the divorce and your willingness to pay legal fees in order to achieve that result. So let's take another example. Let's say that your realistic priorities for the outcome of the divorce itself are what's most important to you. If you're that kind of person with that priority, then you might say, I'm willing to have my divorce take longer, and I'm willing to invest more in legal fees in order to achieve those objectives. The choice is yours. Our job as experienced divorce counsel is to help you understand, one, what your objectives for the divorce can be, what's real, what's unlikely, so you can make really sound decisions that way. And then our next job is to help you understand what those objectives might mean in terms of the length of your divorce or the relative investment in legal fees. So for example, if you have a realistic goal around retirement assets and how those will be shared, and your spouse just isn't willing to make a compromise on that point, and your lawyer's advising that they think a judge might see it your way, then your next step is, am I willing to invest the legal fees to go through a trial on that issue? And am I willing to invest the time it will take to have a judge make that decision for me? Again, it's all up to you. It's our job to give you the information that you need and the guidance that we provide based upon our experience and knowledge to help you make really good decisions and how they are prioritized for you, for your life now, in the divorce itself, and for your future. Let's look at it from another angle. Let's say you're a person who really wants to keep things out of court. You really want to maintain control over the decisions. You don't want a public forum. You don't want any friends and family members deposed. You want to keep things out of court and in control of you and your spouse. Well, what that means is that you're going to have to compromise. So, how do you prioritize things if that's your primary urgency, keeping things out of court? Well, in some cases, negotiations can take a little bit of time. Sometimes we'll want to bring in a retired judge to help you mediate to keep things out of court. There can be an investment in legal fees around that, and it's good to know that before you do it. You might be asking the court to actually delay trial or hearings so you can really try and resolve things out of court. And look, you might wind up deciding to compromise on some things that you had hoped not to have to compromise on in order to avoid trial. All of these decisions are fine. It's your choice. We just want to make sure that you understand and have the information you need to prioritize the things that matter the most to you. You have decisions to make about the outcomes of your divorce, and then you have decisions to make about your divorce itself. How long it takes, whether it's in court or out of court, your investment in legal fees. These are all a series of choices you'll be making through your divorce. And the earlier you think about these things and start to prioritize them, should down the road it come down to brass tacks, you'll have a really good anchor as you're making your decisions, rooted in a clear head so that you can confidently make decisions that matter the most to you. In the course of your divorce, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions. I shouldn't even say it that way. You get to make a lot of decisions. So how does making those decisions feel like a I get to and not a, oh my God, more decisions? It's by early on deciding what your priorities are, both for the outcome of the divorce, property division, alimony, parenting, child support, and for the divorce itself. Do you want to keep it out of court? Do you want to make sure that your investment in legal fees stays within a certain budget? How you think about those priorities is going to help you make decisions down the line when you're in the moment deciding whether to resolve your divorce or not.